In the UK, the average marathon time is 4 hours 37, so if you can run one in under 4 hours, you are well above average. However, you can't just run a sub 4 marathon by accident. So if you're looking to break 4 hours, you need to know exactly how far away from that time you are right now and how to close that gap and maximize your chances on the day. Also, just noticed I'm recording this video in a wife beater, but we're not changing it now because it's so hot in here. I'm so over summer at this point. Bring me autumn. Anyway, to get that elusive sub 4 hour marathon, most runners are doing one of two things. They're either downloading a plan from Runner and then trying to keep pace with it for as long as they can before life inevitably just gets in the way, or they keep running further and further and further every week with no real plan in place and no idea if it's actually working. And on this channel, we don't guess, we make plans and we execute. So by the end of this video, you will know 3 things. 1, whether you're actually ready for a sub 4 marathon. 2, if you're not yet, roughly how long it's going to take you to get you there. And 3, the key things that you actually need to train. And spoiler alert, it's not just about the running. So let's kick things off by figuring out where you're at right now. And I've built you a free tool here to help figure out how close you are to that sub 4 marathon. The link is in the description if you want to try it out yourself. So once you click on that link in the description, you're going to be taken to a page that looks exactly like this. And so this is what I've built for you. All you're going to do is you're going to click on calculate my sub 4 plan. And it's going to ask you for a few small bits of information, and it's going to help give you that starting point so that we know roughly how much work we've got to do to get that sub 4. So all you're going to do is you're going to fill in your recent race distance. Now, I would recommend here, to make this as accurate as possible, go for one of your most recent either races or best efforts, and it could be 5K, 10K, half marathon. If you've got one that's a half marathon distance, then use that because it's going to be slightly more accurate, more representative of what your marathon performance is going to be like. But use whatever you've got, preferably within the last month or so. And so, for example, if I say, well, I know a couple of weeks ago I ran a 10K race and I ran it in 55 minutes. So I'll just say ran that in 55. Body weight, so currently about 82. That doesn't affect your time, but it is going to impact something else, which we'll get to in a sec. And then goal marathon time is 4 hours, that defaults, but you can use this tool for other times if you do want to change that. So feel free to have a play around with it if you want to. And then your current longest run duration. Again, this is optional, used more for pacing and fueling stuff. If you know that you've done a long run recently, just put in the longest run you've done. So I know that I'm capable of running around about a 2 hour 30 long run at an easy pace at the moment. So I'll put that in. And then all you're going to do is hit calculate and you're going to get your sub 4 reality check. We know that to get a sub 4 hour marathon, the pacing that you need is around a 5-minute 41 kilometer or a 9-minute 9-second mile. Then your checkpoint splits would be roughly crossing a 10K in just under 57 minutes, halfway in 2 hours, 30K 2 hours 50. Again, that's linear. We know that running a marathon isn't going to be linear, but we'll get to that. And then your reality check is based off of my 55-minute 10K. My current predicted marathon time is around 4 hours 13, so about 13 minutes above the goal. And to take that 13 minutes off, I'm going to need to increase my average pace by around 19 seconds per kilometre. Which then begs the question, well, what results could I get? And how long is it going to take me to reach that sub 4 marathon? And that's what the next part of the tool is going to tell you. So if you scroll down, you're going to get a projection. So assuming that you follow 16 weeks of structured training, you could reasonably expect to improve that time from 4:13 to anywhere from 4 hours 8 minutes all the way down to, oh, so close, 22 seconds off. Oh, I should have used a better number. But realistically speaking, what this is saying is that a sub 4 hours based off of my starting point of a 55-minute 10K, could very well be a possibility if I absolutely smash that training block. And what this does is it also just gives you a little projection of what you could expect. So if this is 16 weeks, but you know, well, I've got 12 weeks to train, you know that after 12 weeks, if we go all the way down here to week 12, best case, we're probably looking around 4 hours 3. And whilst none of these numbers are exact, it just gives you a good idea of what that time frame is going to look like. And if you want any more information on the race, on fueling, pacing, etc., then you scroll down even further. And again, this is all free. All you have to do is just whack your name and email in here, click unlock, and then you'll get a bunch more information about actually fueling your race as well. So it'll tell you roughly how much water you need, how many gels, when to take the gels, just to give you a little bit of a plan to start with that you can start practicing with your long runs. All completely free. just whack your details in and then it will give you all of the information that you need, and then you can play around with it, make something a bit more personalized to you. But as with anything, this calculator is never going to be 100% accurate because there are so many different variables that impact how fast you're going to run on the day. So let's get into a few of the different training pillars, the things that we need to be working on to make sure that we can maximize our chances of running sub 4, and some things that you might not have considered until now. So what are some of the things that we need to be paying attention to get that sub 4? Now, when I first say marathon training to you, 99 times out of 100, the first thing that's going to pop into your head is easy runs, long runs, aerobic base, just thinking about that aerobic fitness, which is understandable. It is very, very important to be able to get that faster marathon time. But one of the things that we criminally neglect is our physical and muscular endurance. So what I'm talking about is making sure that the rest of your body is able to keep up with the demands, not just your lungs. Now, I want you to think of your body a bit like a car. And when you're running a marathon, you're going on a longer road trip. You're not going around a track, so you don't need a really light, kitted out kit car. You want a Grand Tourer, comfortable, plenty of power, but you know that you can relax and you know that it's not going to fall apart halfway through the trip. So this is you, and this is your vehicle to get you through the marathon. And here's you looking all nice and happy. Now, if you're just focusing on aerobic base, easy runs, building the VO2 max and building up that aerobic fitness, all you're doing is you're making that engine as big as possible. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Bigger engine, more power, you'll get there quicker. Perfect. However, there is no point having a big engine if the rest of the vehicle is not built to withstand that demand. A few Italian cars spring to mind. And so if you set out with that big powerful engine, but your body can't keep up, this road trip is going to be an absolute write-off. So think about your strength work as improving your build quality. You're making sure everything else can handle the demands of that impact of just footfall after footfall and landing constantly for 42 kilometers, 26 miles straight. Try and get 2 strength sessions in a week, and don't worry about lifting the heaviest possible weights. You don't have to be in the free weight section all the time. What you want is to be doing strength work that makes you move. We're runners. We want to make sure that we're nice and elastic. We can land properly. We can ping back into position. We can drive off the ground with lots of power. So all of your strength stuff should have jumps and bounces and hops and sprints, and all of these kinds of things are going to build up much more effective strength than just going and squatting the heaviest that you can. Lifting weights is still important and you do want that strength base, but when you're in a marathon training block, try and make as much of that training as practical and effective as you can. Now, the next thing we need to figure out is how you're actually going to pace your marathon. Because when we used the sub 4 calculator earlier, you put in the pace and it gave you checkpoints for 10k, halfway, 30k. But the problem there is that assumes a linear pace, that you're just going to keep the same splits evenly all the way through. And that just doesn't happen. Realistically, if you're new to marathons, or even if you've got a few in the bag, to be honest, you're going to set out faster and you're going to positive split. And what that means is you're gradually going to slow down as you get more towards the end of the race, because your body just can't quite keep up with the same energy and the same pace as when you started out. So you could try and lock in your training and really focus on even or even negative splits where you speed up towards the end of your race. But most likely, the most sensible option is try and build yourself a little bit of a buffer earlier on in the race. And then when you do slow down a bit towards the end, at least you know you've got a bit of time in the tank and you can drag yourself over the finish line. And if we know that to average 4 hours across the marathon distance, we need 5 minutes 41 per kilometre, a good target here would be to try and get the first half of your race, the first half marathon, done at around about a 5 minute 30 per kilometre average. This will get you to the halfway point in about an hour 56, so then you've got 2 hours and 4 minutes, well, 2 hours and 3 minutes and 59 seconds to do the second half of your race. So your strategy might be run at a 5 minute 30 for the first half, that gets you to an hour 56, run the next 10k at 5 minute 45, that's 57 minutes 30, which brings you to just over 2 hours 53. The next 10k at a 6 minute average pace, so you're getting slower each time. That's another hour, so then you cross 41 kilometers at 3 hours 53:30, and then you just need to run like hell for the last kilometer and a bit just to secure the sub 4. It's not perfect and you're not going to follow that exactly, but at least if you've got a plan, you know that you can slow up a little bit and you can still get there, and adrenaline and the crowd cheering is just going to carry you through the last bit anyway. But speaking of the last 10k, when you're feeling tired and fatigued, this is going to be the make or break part of the marathon for you. I always tell my runners that a marathon is a 32 kilometer warm up and then a 10K race, because that is the hardest part, bar none. So if you can get yourself as ready as possible for that last 10K, you're going to be fine. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this last 10K is just so much more difficult than the rest of the race. Number one is, if you've been following a structured training plan, the odds are the longest long run that you're going to have done is about 20 miles or 32K. So as soon as you pass that point, you're into uncharted territory. And that is when the little voice in the back of your head starts going, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can get over the last 10K. I don't know if it's physically possible to do one more step. And that's the bit that we want to work on ahead of time. But how can we do that if we haven't run a marathon distance? Because you don't know if you can do it or not. The first thing that I want you to practice at some points in your training block is figuring out how to simulate running under fatigue. Now, there's a few things that you could do here to build up the strength and the confidence that you can get yourself through that last bit. One useful thing that you can do is to practice running some of your long runs already fasted. So this goes against all conventional running wisdom, I'm aware, but if you can set out for a longer run, having deliberately fasted before, so that you're already running on empty a little bit, firstly, your body physiology is going to adapt. You're going to practice getting better at breaking down fatty acids for fuel, so that is helpful. But another point is just mentally. If you can drag yourself through and almost just put yourself in the trenches on a shorter run, you're just simulating that end of race experience, and you're going to be more prepared for it when it comes. You'll have that experience to fall back on, so that when you're 35K into your marathon and you can feel your glycogen stores just starting to deplete and everything's getting heavier and your legs are feeling like they just don't want to move and you're going through treacle, you've got some experience of that in your training runs that you can draw on already. And mentally, that gives you a massive boost. The other thing that you can do, and this kind of kills two birds with one stone in terms of balancing your strength work and your running, you can do some of your runs immediately after doing a strength session. So simulate running on heavy legs already. So if you've got strength work that you're doing as part of your marathon training, because you should be strength training, do one of your runs immediately after that lower body session, because it's going to feel harder and your legs are going to feel heavier. And that is the point. Because if you can do that and you can get used to that feeling of running with heavy legs when everything just doesn't quite feel right, and you can sit with that discomfort, that is going to be another massive boost that is going to get you through that last 10K. Obviously, do this in moderation. Don't risk injuring yourself, but it is just good experience. And finally, something that we don't talk about often enough, we've really just been focusing on the physical side of this, but we also need to understand the mental side of running a marathon. Because when you're out there and you're running for 4 hours, effectively non-stop, you are going to go to a pretty dark place mentally, especially 2/3 of the way through, 30 kilometers in. You're so far away from the start line that it just feels like your body is slowly shutting down, but you're not quite close enough to the finish line to see that light at the end of the tunnel yet. And so we need to figure out how we're going to get through that stage just when you have to sit alone with your thoughts. The most important thing that you can do going into your race is to have a plan, and have a plan for when things go wrong. It doesn't have to be anything groundbreaking. This is almost like a break glass in case of emergency backup plan, right? It could be something as small as, when it gets too much, I'm just going to walk to the next drink station. Or when I get to the next drink station, I'm going to stop when I have my drink so that I get a chance to reset. That's all you need. Just the fact that you know you've got a backup plan and you know you've got something that will just help to lighten the load a little bit will make a massive difference mentally and to your confidence whilst you're running. We don't want you to get to the point of just running, and then thinking, I have to give up and I have to stop completely. If you've just got that little backup plan of, I'm going to give myself this rest, I'm going to stop for 60 seconds, I'm going to stop at the drinks table, whatever it is, that will be enough to keep you going. It will give you something to work towards, and then you know you can just reset in your head, you can count yourself down from 10, and you can get going again. The thing is, training for a marathon is just so difficult because there's so many different things to consider. You go into it thinking, I just need to follow a running plan and the fitness gains will come. But then reality slaps you in the face and you think, oh God, no, I've got to think about the running and the fueling and the strength work and the mental side and making sure I don't get injured and how to live the rest of my life whilst also doing all of these things. So I've built a sub-4 blueprint to take all of the thinking out of that for you. I'll put the link in the description as well, but essentially it is a 16-week training plan delivered straight to your watch, but on top of that you get all of the strength guides, which you can do in the gym or at home. You've got guides on mental resilience and preventing injury just to get you through the training block unscathed. There's calculators to work out how to fuel your runs, how to pace yourself, how many calories you need generally whilst you're marathon training. And you get lifetime access to the Run Percent Club, which, as well as being fantastically named, if I do say so myself, is an online run club where you can post your training updates, any questions you've got, and then you get your questions answered by real coaches. But for now, stick your details in the calculator, figure out how close you are to that sub-4 marathon, find yourself some kind of structured plan to follow, whether it's the sub-4 blueprint or something else, and then just focus on building that consistency, sticking to the system, and you'll be ready for a sub-4 marathon before you know it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.